A soldier fighting in Afghanistan discovered she had breast cancer, but decided she would stay in the country, in a war zone, and fight for her country. That's who I have on this episode.
Hey, what's up? This is Pat Flynn.
This is Cynthia Sanchez.
This is Kelly Lanning.
This is Miron Bareket.
From smartpassiveincome.com.
From ohsopinteresting.com.
From Houston, Texas.
From Inspiring Innovation. And you're listening.
And you're listening to
the Empowered Podcast.
To the Empowered Podcast.
And you're listening to the Empowered Podcast.
With Ellery Wells.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Empowered Podcast. My guest today has an absolutely incredible story. She served in the U.S. Army on active duty, means she was fighting for over 12 years, and she only retired just recently here in March of 2014. In 2011, she was selected to be one of the first women to train and deploy as part of the Army Special Operations Culture Support Program in Afghanistan. So she was in a combat zone, and it was during that deployment that she discovered that she had cancer in her left breast. She made the decision to keep fighting. She stayed in the Army. She kept going on her tour and kept monitoring what was going on with her health. And then in March of 2012, she went for an ultrasound, which is something similar to what my wife Ashley does, which led to a surgical consult and ultimately diagnosis of stage 3 breast cancer. And she's also applying the mentality that she learned in the Army to help other people, training, coaching, speaking, all those things. And she had a bilateral mastectomy and a partial hysterectomy, 35 treatments of radiation. And she is now learning to accept what her life is now as the new normal. And she's currently battling with the side effects of all of the treatments and the procedures, and figuring out how to move forward with that. So let's welcome to the show, Mylee. How are you doing today, Mylee?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be asked to be on your podcast.
You are very welcome. And one of the things, Mylee, that we talk about on the show is overcoming challenges, facing things that we all go through life. Sometimes, you know, our challenges are bigger than others, but how we come through those to be better, stronger, faster on the other side. And that's why I'm really excited to have you on the show, not only because of the Army part, but the cancer part and some of the other things that you've gone through your life. So I'm really excited to share your story today and introduce you to the listeners of the show.
Well, I'm really excited to be here.
So take us back. How did you end up going into the Army?
Well, when I was younger, my family really wasn't. I had an uncle who was in the military, and my dad went into the Navy when he was young. But we really didn't grow up around a military family. For me, it was more about my initial thoughts about joining the military were for school purposes, because going to medical school and taking care of my family. We had a family barbecue happening on September 11th. And when we stood there watching the news, and I had spoken to a couple recruiters, I had been through a pre-base, I was all set to join the Marine Corps. And, I'd been through like some pre-training, and I stood there and I was still dabbling with the idea. And I stood there watching, everything that was happening that day. And it just kind of hit me watching it in that moment. My family wasn't much on keeping up with the news or anything like that, but watching it was just shocking for me as a preacher's kid who was pretty much sheltered, to see somebody, so much devastation and pain, and then to watch the heroes that were running out there. So I made my decision that day that I was going to join, because, everybody's like, oh, they're going to war now. And I wanted to do my part as just one person in a very big world, but I wanted to do my part. So I signed up. I signed up my paperwork and enlisted March 15th. It took a little while because I hadn't graduated yet, so I needed my high school diploma. But yeah, so I joined. That's how I joined the military. I didn't join the way I wanted to. I definitely wanted to join the Marine Corps, but I had some pushback from my parentals. And
what was the reason behind going for the Army versus the Marine Corps?
I think I can tell you the long story behind it, but I'll give you the short version. I was
Okay.
raised very traditional preacher's kid, but very traditional Italian, and I was very tomboyish. So my stepmom was trying to help me become a little bit more ladylike, and they felt that the Marine Corps would not assist in that. So, so at the time, because I was underage, I had to, go through the parents. So I joined and plus, they used the fact that my uncle was in the National Guard. So I joined the National Guard thinking that I was active duty. I mean, I went through basic training trying to jump in every line that was for active duty. And they were just like, what part of your National Guard do you not get? So I joined the military in 2002, March of 2002. I signed all my paperwork. And right after basic and AIT, I realized that I wanted to do it full time. So after volunteering for a couple tours, I say tours, but a couple of rotations to go out and stay out at NTC for about 6 months, I realized that I didn't want to be part-time. So I submitted my paperwork and requested a conditional release to go regular Army. And so I was stationed at Fort Bragg after that.
Wow. Wow, that's very interesting. I've talked to several people who signed up, under similar circumstances. A friend of mine was in the Army, and then after the Army, he went back, and we met at Baylor, where we both went to school, and then he went back into the Army, and it's always inspiring to hear stories like that, where people up and volunteered. They wanted to take action towards something, and they went and did that. So thank you for volunteering to do that.
It's my honor.
How did I may know the answer to this just by checking out your Facebook profile and stuff, but how did the ladylike training go?
Actually, I'll say this much. My first unit was a combat engineer unit, so it didn't really do much for that unit, but I did meet I met my future husband before I had gotten to my first unit, and being with someone who treated me like a princess kind of helped. And I still maintained my tough side, but after getting engaged and going active duty, I had an amazing female NCO who taught me the difference between being one of the guys comfortably and forcing it. And she taught me how to be a strong woman and still, put a little mascara on, still be very ladylike. And one of the things I'll always remember her saying, and I tell my daughter, is that you don't have to you can get down and dirty with the guys all you want, but you don't have to completely change who you are and become very manly to be respected in this job. And she taught me so much. And I definitely became, it's weird to say this, but I definitely became more feminine because I found my inner strength. I could run with the big boys. I could run with the guys and not have to be a guy. And that's what made a big difference in all my military relationships. I could turn it on and off. I
like that. Yeah, because I've seen it's hard to imagine, the ladylike side when I've seen pictures of you, holding an M4 and in your fatigues and everything, and then the next picture on Facebook is you posing for a modeling shoot or working out or something like that. So you've definitely done an incredible and very interesting job of incorporating the toughness of the military with finding out who you are and discovering who you are and what you want to be. And you said you had a daughter did I hear that right? I
do. I have a 9-year-old. She's a spitting image of me.
So she's getting all of the knowledge that you have to pass on to her.
Yeah, I had to learn how not to treat her like one of my soldiers sometimes. So it's been trial and error, but she's turning out pretty good, I think. I don't think I've ruined her.
Just out of curiosity, what was your rank when you were all done and 12 years in the Army?
Staff sergeant.
Staff sergeant. That's like the badass rank, right?
That's the rank of where you've been in long enough to know better, but you don't have the rank to brag about it.
There you go. Is that in the old Army lesson? What is it? Don't volunteer for anything. Is that the saying?
Oh yeah, I came in with that mentality. Never volunteer, be the gray man, stand out where it counts, and stand away when it's not. When it's all about work.
So, tell me what it was like. You're in a combat zone. I think you might have been in Afghanistan at the time, and you discovered a lump on your left breast. You're out in maybe the middle of nowhere on a base somewhere. What was that like?
Well, to be honest, I'll just say my life has never been easy. So I'm used to Murphy's Law, the negative and the positive side of Murphy's Law affecting me at all times. Once I had worked with these guys before, so I knew the importance of the mission for them, and I knew what role I could play. We came back from a mission, and, after, being out for 24 hours, sometimes 48, sometimes 72, coming back, the first thing you want to do is clean up everything, eat, and then shower. And so when we finally finished up cleaning and breaking down and eating, and then I went to shower, and when I was done, I was drying off. And so when I felt the mass, like if you ever like run your hand over your leg and you feel something stuck to it, you immediately go right back to it. It was kind of that sort of thing. I was drying off and I felt this mass, and first thing that ran through my mind was, what the heck is that? And then when I tried to look at it, I couldn't see what it was. It was just definitely a big round, like a little bit smaller than a ping pong ball mass. It was very hard. So I thought, and not to be gross, but given all the equipment we wear and the heat at that time, I thought maybe it was just like a boil or something. I don't know. I was just trying to figure out what it was. And I didn't think too much of it when I first found it. I didn't want to make a big deal. The whole thing about being out there is you don't want to be that person who complains about something, because everybody else is sucking just as much as you are. So I made note of it, saw where it was at, and was just like, okay, well, this isn't normal, but it's probably a girl problem is what I thought. This is just some girl problem that will go away. And I didn't think about it again until probably middle of November, because I found it in November. And middle of November, toward Thanksgiving, I mentioned it again to the captain, who was on the other member of my 2-person team. And she was a PA, and I told her, I didn't act very concerned. I was just like, hey, I just want to let you know, just, what do you think? She's like, it's probably just a fluid-filled mass, no worries. So kept pushing on. And, I honestly did not think twice about it until December. In December, the guys had gone out on this mission, and we actually couldn't go with them because they knew it was going to be pretty intense and hellacious. And it did turn out to be that way. We were manning the radio back at the camp, and we had to listen to the whole thing. And so when we lost a couple guys, we lost some of our commandos. When we went back to our main base for the memorial for Benjamin Wise, when you lose people that and you just saw them the day before, you are kind of faced with your mortality. Things bother you a little bit more, like you worry about other people, and then you start realizing, oh my goodness. So the mass had gotten bigger. I for some reason decided to check it again, and the mass had gotten bigger. It's about the size of a full size ping pong ball or kind of a golf ball. So I brought it up again to my PA. She did like a little exam, and she's like, I don't know what to tell you. The only thing that can happen at this point is you can get medevaced out of here and go to Germany. If you go to Germany and they decide to cut on you, you'll be stuck in Germany or you'll be sent home. So her opinion was it was probably nothing too serious, and I agreed with her. The thing is being the only 2 females out there with our interpreter, if one of us left, both of us had to leave. And this was such a cool mission to be part of. It was such an honor to be in that group of females that we were chosen. We were part of the second group of females to make it through selection, and it was a big job. I didn't want to leave, and I didn't want to screw up my partner's chances of finishing out her tour. We only had 3 or 4 months left. So at that point, I made the mistake of mentioning it to one of the guys, one of the medics, and Delta. He's the special operations medic. And I mentioned it to him. And guys tend to freak out about boobs more than women do. It's just the truth of it. So they kind of freaked out. They were just like, "Oh my goodness, this is serious. Like, this is hard. I don't know what it is." I was jokingly saying you guys should just cut it out, and I'm glad we didn't. So the thing is that we were close to a German hospital, military hospital. However, even if we did an ultrasound in country, no one could read it. My only option was to suck it up, stick it out, or go home, be medevaced out. And I just didn't want the guys to think that I was running away because of because of what happened in the last mission. So I stuck it out, and I wasn't concerned until we got home, and everybody else was making a bigger deal about it than I was. You just put in that mindset that I was in. I wanted to just put my head down and keep fighting, keep doing what I was paid to do, and keep learning the things I was learning, because you never know what's gonna happen on the next mission.
About how old were you at that time?
I was 27 when I found it.
Do you look back and is that right?
Maybe.
Is that the right?
I was either 26 I think it was either 26 about to turn 27, I believe. Or I was 27 turning 28. I don't remember.
That's all right. Looking back now, do you think it was a good decision to stick it out for, so you said March or April, I think, so maybe 5 or 6 months of staying in Afghanistan? Would you have done anything different?
Honestly, no. I stand by my decision to stay. I don't think it would have changed much coming home. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. So honestly, I know that I had all my exams done I went and did like the whole girly exam in March, and then another one in May, and then another one in June, right before we deployed. And there were no masses there. So the mass showed up pretty much overnight, or it grew from between June to November. It had grown that much. So I don't feel like it would have made, I don't know, it could have made a big difference. But to me, I stand by the decision I made because it was what was important to me at the time. Coming home early would have just consisted, it would have made things easier when I got out, because of the fact that being medevaced there's just all these rules about if you get medevaced out of country, that's considered combat related and all this stuff. So I don't know. It could have made things a little bit easier. Definitely would have kept me from being stage 3, most definitely. But it turned out okay. So I try not to regret any decision I made, because then that keeps us living in the past. And when we live in the past, we can't move forward. Yeah,
and there's very little point playing the woulda, coulda, shoulda game.
Exactly.
Just the stakes in your case just seem to be incredibly high. I mean, you're in a combat zone, guns going off every day, and you lost people that you knew, and here's something that is life-changing for anyone, but you're one of only 2 females in a group or unit, or whatever the size it was, and you decided to stick it out and do your duty and serve and support people that you are close to, instead of getting something done that would anybody would say absolutely needed to be checked out. That's pretty incredible.
I think I'm just hard-headed. Thank you for the compliment, but I honestly believe that I'm just hard-headed, and I'm old school military. You stay until the job's done, and I always just thought about, if I go home for something and it turns out to be a fluid-filled cyst, no way. No way. I always say it whenever I tell a story. I'm like, I'm hard-headed, and I chose to stay in country because we wanted to finish. I didn't want to be that chick that walked away, and, what if it did? It's just too many what ifs. The only thing I knew for sure is that I was alive, and it was just some ping pong in my chest at the time, so I could wait.
Yeah, and it helps when you have a good sense of humor. I mean, when you said you were joking about having the guys cut it out, I mean, I've obviously never had anything that, well, maybe not so obvious, but I've never had anything that serious. But I can remember making jokes, like, just if you get a cut or when it gets just cut, something like that, just applying your odd sense of humor to the situation just to get through it. So I'm sure that helped. And so what's the situation now? I know my aunt had breast cancer, and I think the percentage of women who have things like that is just incredibly high. But are you, I don't know if cured's the right term, but are you completely cancer free now a couple years later, or?
Well, so one of the things that I like to do is definitely, I'm glad you didn't say in remission, because so many people use the term remission, and remission is a term used for blood cancer. So with cancers like mine, anything that has like an anoma, like a tumor, we say no evidence of disease. For me, because where my risk factors are and all that fun stuff, I won't truly know where I'm at until I come off of this aromatase inhibitor that blocks my estrogen. I went extreme. I had the mastectomy, I had the lymph nodes removed, and then I had my ovaries removed because just doing my research, my cancer feeds off of estrogen. My ovaries make estrogen. So for me, it was a simple decision. Not doctors didn't like it, but it was a simple decision. So I have been having, going through some treatment here or there because of some scans coming back. I am probably about May, end of April, beginning of May, I was back on treatment again because of a scan I had that things kind of lit up like a Christmas tree. I go back again here soon to find out where I'm at. So yeah, for all intents and purposes, I'm continuing to fight. And, one day I hope to be able to say I'm completely cured, but we'll see. I just kind of take it in stride. It's just day by day for me.
One thing that I kind of wanted to ask you is some people, or I've seen debates about if cancer runs in your family, that some people are just opting to get both breasts removed beforehand. Any thoughts on that? Is that an okay question to ask?
Absolutely. I'm open to whatever questions you have. So for me, when I came home, I immediately researched. I was in the middle of a move, and the unit PCS'd me or moved me to a new duty station less than 45 days after being home. So I spent a lot of time researching all aspects of my cancer. I knew right away that I didn't have a family history of it. So I knew right away that I needed to get in and get some genetic testing done. I did my genetic testing and everything came back negative. I even did 2 other tests, which is a 10 percentile test. That came back negative. And then I submitted my blood to the University of Washington to have it, they just basically tear apart your DNA to test the different strands for different markers. And that came back negative as well. So I'm not sure what happened in my case. However, I believe that if you can prevent, if you can keep from having too many surgeries, obviously don't have them. But I do believe in people who have a family history of cancer, especially breast cancer, if you can get the testing, I wish insurance would cover it, but if you could get the testing, the BRCA 1 and 2 testing done to let you know where your markers are, and if you have you're predisposed to have breast cancer, I think that option should be there for people, especially people who have children. Bringing up Angelina Jolie, I remember when that story came out and so many people were I was grateful for my friends saying, that's not a hero, these fighters are heroes, because people were making it out like, there's a lot of stories saying she was so brave, but I had to tell everybody she was brave. That her mother passed away. She had at the time 3 children to live for. It's not an easy decision to go to a doctor and tell them to lob off your breasts and allow them to recreate those breasts that probably won't look the same, So I stand by it. I think that if my daughter, when she gets older and she has the testing done, I will pay for her testing. If it comes back that she has the gene, which I doubt it will because I don't, but you never know, I would stand by her if she decided to have it done. It's a personal decision. And for me, I had most people, my doctors did not want me to have my ovaries removed. My oncologist supported me because it was a common sense decision. But because of all the risk factors, my losing my ovaries puts me into menopause very young. It also increases my risk for heart disease, loss of bone density. There's so many things that happen when you become menopausal at 27 years old. So I do know that there are doctors who may not support it. My doctor didn't want me to have a prophylactic mastectomy on the right side. I wish that there were, I wish it was a cut and dry answer. I wish that doctors could support someone because it's their body. And, you know, if you're doing it for the right reasons, especially if you have children, I wanted so many children, you know, I've waited so long. So for me, I wanted 4 or 5. Making the decision to have my ovaries removed takes that away from me. And it was a devastating decision to make. And I still struggle with it to this day. But I would make the decision over and over again because I have a child to live for. And it's not fair to her to take that chance. So, yes, I think that medical insurance should cover it. I think that women and men as well should be able to get that genetic testing covered by their insurance as well if they have a family history of it. Because it's if you can mitigate risk factors, why the hell not?
If your daughter you said she was 9 now, if in 9 years from now she wanted to join the military, what would you tell her?
I'd have to see where we're at because the way this country is right now, I'm not quite sure I could stand by that decision. However, I know that I loved every second of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. I would support her, but it's hard as a parent to see the way that the institution that I love changed so much and the country changed so much. I wouldn't want her to go into it just for education or, you know, I would want her to go into it because it's something she wants to do. I definitely set things up so that I would prefer that she goes to college straight out of high school. And if she joins the military, she'll go in as an officer or she'll go in with some life experience under her belt first.
Yeah, but I mean, you said you retired in March of 2014, right?
Yes.
So you were in there through 2 long presidencies, and I bet it is an interesting perspective. You know, from a civilian standpoint, we see what the media sees, and from the military standpoint, I guess you might see that as well. But you're on a completely different, or have a different perspective of how leadership comes from the top and how the military is treated and things like that. So it's interesting that you mentioned that when your own daughter is concerned, because obviously you have a very, very unique point of view on that.
Yeah, each of us in the military, we have our own view. It gets harder the higher ranking you get and the longer you've been in. It does get harder to not get angry with decisions that are made, you know, from, you know, Congress or the president or things like that. I always used to tell people that they ask, like, don't you watch the news? And I'm like, no, I live the news every day. You know, like everything that you see on the news, somehow, some way, if it's relating to this country or outside this country, we hear about it already because we're either gearing up to go or someone I know is gearing up. I refuse to watch the news because I'll be angry all the time. And I'll be like, that's not true, you know, or that's not how it is. So now that I'm out, I think about certain things, and it is harder. And I do, because of some things that I experienced the last couple of years while I was sick, from leadership, how leadership has changed from when I joined. I don't know. I mean, I would say that my view on people in the military has changed. The leadership, the longer I'm out, the more people I meet, traveling, getting to do speaking, getting to interview people myself and working with, different people from different news networks. I get to hear a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes, and I get very angry. I'm not even going to lie to you. I get very angry because so you hear things civilians say, and I hear it with different ears. Someone could say something, and a civilian will hear it, and they're like, oh, yeah, I could see that. I hear it, and I'm like, no, you're an idiot. Shut up. So
what makes you the most angry? Anything in the last week or so, 2 weeks? I don't have – this isn't like a pointed question. I have nothing in my head, but has there been something recently that's really pissed you off?
I think that everything that's going on with the president these executive orders and things like that are really it hits a nerve with me, because I think still like an NCO. I think about the second and third order effect of decisions that we make. That's what we're trained to do. I think about how one decision is going to affect everyone beneath me. So when I hear certain things, like I've always said, I'm not political, but I'm starting to get to the point where I'm distressed by certain things that happen, because I have a child. And when you're in the military, your child's taken care of. But now that I'm out, I'm like, these decisions that are being made, the things that are being set into motion are going to they may not affect us right now, but they're going to affect the future. My daughter is the future. And it scares me, and I get very angry, and I think about my brothers and sisters who are still deployed, and I think about what's going on in Iraq, and then I get to see things like the president saying that he had that it wasn't his decision to end the war in Iraq. And the first thing out of my mouth was, I'm sorry. I remember standing there watching you say this stuff. Like, what's wrong with you?
I remember really, a YouTube. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's real. I will say this, and then you can say what you had to say. It's really hard as a soldier, a person who willingly serves the United States of America, who knows that the commander-in-chief of this country is our boss. It's hard to know, if I was still in, it's definitely hard to know, to serve someone who it feels like they're not looking out for the best interests of the country. Like, it's like we're being set up to fail. And watching some of the things that are happening, I remember privates saying it's not a good idea to pull out of Iraq. I remember all of us in Afghanistan saying it's not a good idea to pull out of here. And yet we pull out. And guess what happens now? We're either going to go back over there and we're going to lose more of our people, more young people. And then the older generation who should be staying in and leading to win these wars, they're going to get out because they're just like, I can't fight a losing battle because I'm not allowed to do the job I was trained for. It's just frustrating for me to watch it.
Yeah, when you said that, I remember the quote from John Maxwell. I think in the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, he says everything rises and falls on leadership. So I don't watch the news either, so I didn't hear Obama say that, or whoever said that. I didn't hear it, but to hear your side of it, I completely agree. And if you are the top, either you did it and you're not taking responsibility, or it happened without you knowing and you're incompetent, whoever it is.
Yep. And
I had that same point of view when I worked at a Fortune 50 company. If you don't know, you're incompetent. If you did know, it's still your fault. Mm-hmm. And what I was going to say, I didn't mean to cut you off. There's a little bit of, for everybody listening, there's a slight lag in Skype today, but I remember a bunch of West Point students falling asleep in the audience when Obama was talking about pulling out of Iraq. And I had a client whose son, it was just about 9 months after we were supposed to pull out, that her son was in the Air Force and he was getting deployed over there. So it's always a mixed bag, and I'm not against politics, but you don't have to be a politician to have an opinion and beliefs and want to stand by them. So I always appreciate the opportunity to talk to people who have different, to some degree, different perspectives than I have, and especially someone who's been in your position and been what you've been through. And I mean, 12 years is a long time to have been in the Army. So
I look at it this way. I can't stand politics because most people, they focus on, it's like a shiny thing with an animal or a small child. Yep. If you listen to what they're saying when they're getting ready to go when they're going up for their candidacy and they're campaigning, they know exactly what sparkly thing to wave in front of the people to distract them from what they're not going to do. Talk about what they're going to do, but then it takes away from the issues. I was having a discussion with a friend of mine, and we talked about debates. The debates are so, it's like two small children arguing. It's like, yeah, nah. It's like, yeah. At what point are you going to call each other out on real issues? Like things like one of the big discussions, like everybody always says, if someone who's running for a leadership position, they're like, oh, well, this person doesn't know what it means to have family values because they're not married and with kids. That's the most asinine thing I've ever heard in my life. That person has a mom, they have a sister, they have brothers, they have family. just because you're not, it's things like that. And when they do these debates, those are the things that they point out. And I think it's very frivolous. And I think that, how about you talk about the people who are still suffering? How about you talk about the fact that you released the top 5 people who, sadly, a bunch of civilians and military personnel lost their life trying to capture. Like, those are, you know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of stuff. Like, how in the world is your country's military supposed to stand ready to deploy and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, when you don't even know if you can trust your leader?
And that's I hadn't even thought about the people who captured that person in the first place.
Yeah.
Everybody can agree, and you might even agree with this too. Bring the troops home. That's a great thing to say, but if we save 100 lives today, that's wonderful. That's excellent. But if we turn around in 18 months and send 1,000 people to reclaim or to fix what we messed up in the first place, is it? How do you find that balance? So anyway, I think I agree with you quite a bit, and again, I thank you for joining after. I mean, I was in high school too in 2001, so we're about the same age, and our lives have taken different paths, and but I'm glad that we have the chance to meet virtually. Over Skype. But with the last few minutes, Mylee, by the way, what is the YC? For everybody listening, Mylee YC on everywhere, on Twitter and everything. What does the YC stand for? Is that a big secret?
No, it's really simple, actually. And my maiden name is Yanoni, and it starts with a Y, and my married name is Cardenas. So, of course, when I got married, I took my ex-husband's name, and like a good wife does. And doing the job that I did before I deployed, I worked with, I didn't like having a Facebook, but I had one to keep up with family. And so I was very much trying to be the great person. And it was back when Facebook, when you could hide so much information and no one could search for you. So I put Mylee YC, I put the first letter of each name together so that people couldn't find me. And the way that I had my Facebook set up was I had to allow them, or I had to request them for them to be on my page. And then when I did the first photo shoot for breast cancer, and I did the first docu short about my story, that's what stuck. and I in August of last year, like August 17th, actually, myself and the person I was with at the time received the keys to the city of West Hollywood. And I remember the mayor standing there, and I love her to death. And she was just like, we'd like to welcome, we're very excited to have Mylee YC here. And I was like, who the heck is Mylee YC? I'm like looking around. I'm like, oh. And at that point is when I started the community, like the public page. And someone told me, well, everyone knows you as that. So why not leave it and just have like your that's the name I use for everything related to this now. It kind of helps with privacy as well. For family members and that sort of thing. So it just stuck. And when I tried to change it, I was advised that, it's been like this for a year. You might as well leave it and just use it as like
it's a brand,
like a brand, or like your stage name or something. So yeah, it stuck.
There you go. So the mayor of West Hollywood and John Travolta have something in common. Well, with the last couple of minutes, Mylee, I don't want to go too far over our time. What does the word empower mean to you?
Well, empower to me, if I usually take things and directly put it to me, it just means to dig deep and find a way to make it dig through all the crap and find that silver lining, find something positive to hold on to and keep pushing toward a goal. If I focus on myself, I have to empower myself every day to get up and deal with all the crap that comes to me, let it happen, and then find the positive thing and push toward it. Nothing good happens from just sitting there feeling powerless. It's finding that inner strength within yourself to keep going, even though everything is stacked against you. There's so many walls in your way. If I'm speaking in terms of everyone else, I'd say every person in the world has the opportunity to to share their strength and their experience, and sharing your story, sharing what you've learned, the good, the bad, the ugly, the true, whatever, that not only empowers you personally, it'll empower other people. So when I tell people about why I tell my story, it started out as a way for like therapy. And the more I told my story, the stronger I got, because every time I tell my story, I learn something new about myself.
When you decided to share that story, were you scared to do that, or feel like you might lose friends or credibility? Or
Yes, absolutely. Because I still had dreams of staying in the military. When I started sharing on Facebook, at the time, before I got sick, I had so many friends. I thought I was going to do this and have all these people support me. And I quickly realized that in my mind, nobody was strong enough to handle me being weak. So I kept a lot of things quiet. And then when I would tell people, those people never called, they never checked on me. So I turned to my Facebook page, because that's where they all seemed to be there. So I started posting what I was going through, the treatments, and me typing it out and actually reading it, said it like it was happening to someone else, and then I could actually look at it through different eyes. And I was very scared, because especially as the more I told my story, probably about a year after I started sharing photos of like the surgeries, and I was so scared that people would report my page or look at me and say, actually, I'm gonna be honest. I had a friend. I'll tell you a quick story. Yesterday, I had a friend of mine who I was very close to, and I considered to be a very good friend, text me and tell me that he couldn't trust me anymore, and that he felt like because he saw pictures of me. I competed in a bodybuilding show this weekend, and he sees pictures of me lifting and dancing and having fun, and he says, this is not behavior. It's not normal behavior for someone going through treatment. He's like, I find it hard to believe that you're actually going through treatment. And my response to him was very simple. One, if you haven't been through it and you haven't been there close, you don't know what is appropriate behavior for a person going through anything like this. Number two, I had to start, if you look back to the very beginning, even on my worst day, I still smiled. I found something positive. These are the things that keep me from being depressed and doing harm to myself. And that text message yesterday, I will be honest with you, it broke my heart. So, wow. Because no one knows, sorry, I'm going to cry. Oh, you did it. You got me to cry. No one knows what a person is going through. And it could be as simple as you're working your job 9 to 5, and you go to work and you put on a smile on your face because you have to. And when you go home, no one's there and you feel like garbage. But everybody sees you going through it. And at one time you confide in someone and say, I'm miserable. They're there for you. But then all of a sudden they see you out and about living life smiling. They're like, this person lied to me. That right there is why so many people struggle alone. That is why people stay hidden. I didn't have the luxury of having 100 people by my side, or even one. Not many people. I had maybe 1 or 2 people who showed up to my chemo. I had one person who came to my surgeries. It is scary to share your story. It's scary to open yourself up and be that transparent. And the reason I do it is because I know that there's someone else out there who may or may not be going through things the same way I did, or worse. And it's weird to go through something and have your body wage war against you, and it's in whatever way it is, and you can't do anything about it. You have no control. Even your medical treatment is decided. I still get to say yes about it, but my medical treatment was decided for me before I even started. So smiling, sharing my story, getting out there, training, doing these competitions, challenging myself every single day. It may look like I'm ecstatic on the outside, but I still struggle every day. There's a fear. I'm a mom. What if this crap comes back worse this time? What if I can't go somewhere with my daughter because I'm puking my guts up? That's the reality of it. And I choose to stay on the positive side of things. I choose to surround myself with positivity, even if I'm surrounding myself alone. What I put out there to the world, I try to keep as transparent as possible. But it is only one half of what I'm going through. And I do. If you go to my page, I definitely do have bad days, and I'll post things like, today's not a good day and I'm struggling to find some happy place. And dance and training and being active with my daughter, those are actual actions that make me happy. Even if I can't be happy in what's happening, I'm happy doing those things. So, so for sharing my story, for me, it's every day there's a part. I'm so scared to share a part of certain parts of myself because of the fact that people do ridicule.
Wow, I don't know. I don't know how you follow up with that. Do you need to go now, or do you have a couple more minutes?
No, I have a couple minutes. I'm good.
Good. Has there been a silver lining to you sharing your story? I'm working on, as of right now, I'm working on a project that will reveal more of my story that I've kind of not shared too publicly, and I'm kind of afraid to do that. What if I lose credibility? What if, people think that I've been lying to them all of this time? Is there maybe advice that you can give me, or some encouragement that you can give me and the people who are going through the same thing? Just, is there a silver lining? It's better now that you have shared your struggle and your story. Is it better now than it was before?
For me, sharing my story, I had to do it for me. So I'll tell you, sharing your story has to be about you. It's a great way to stop searching for healing and to actually get it for yourself. When you begin sharing your story, not only are you telling, you're pushing yourself to step outside your comfort zone, but you're also, when the words come from your mouth, no matter how many times you tell them, you will learn something new about yourself. And one of my biggest problems throughout life has been taking on other people's problems to avoid my own, because I've always been the person people come to for help. I've always been the person who will drop everything for someone else. I never took care of myself, ever. Could be why I got cancer, don't know. But telling my story has given me the opportunity to help myself while helping others. And it is scary, but if you look at the big picture, you may lose some people. You'll never lose credibility, because what you know is what you know, what you've done is what you've done, and what you've been through, that's your story. That is what's made you who you are. You will find that you'll gain more than you'll lose. The risk seems high right now, but you will gain so much more from it. And the world is full of people trying to tell their story these days, and I applaud them for stepping out. But it's what you do after you tell your story. How much are you changing? Are you applying those lessons to yourself? Is your story done just because you're telling it now, or do you continue to tell how you grow from it? And for me, I continue telling, and if I learn something about myself, like just this conversation right now, I realized a couple of things, and it's definitely something I'm going to talk about. And that's how we grow as people. Everybody's like, strive for progress, not perfection. There is no such thing as perfection, because if you're perfect, you're dead. You always are going to be growing. There's always room to learn. We're going to continue. I'm always going to make mistakes. I'm going to fall back to old habits. I'm going to forget to go to the doctor because I don't want to be told I'm sick. There are going to be people who look at my pictures and say, what did some lady say? There's always going to be people out there who just are so negative, or feel like their story is worse than yours, or feel like you're faking it, or that you're just doing it for personal reasons. You're damn right I'm doing it for personal reasons. I'm doing it because I have a desire to help people, and I went through all this alone. And if sharing what I went through will help me mentally and emotionally, that's good. And if it'll help someone else because they were scared to share their story and now they know that someone's going through it, that they're not alone, I'm happy with that. I'm happy if my career just consists of me posting blogs and talking to people and answering emails of people who are struggling with their weight. And I mean, I'm like the freaking poster child for self-help books. I had an abusive childhood. I got married young. I got divorced young. I weighed 220 pounds, struggled with my weight for about 5 or 6 years, lost the weight, was a single mom on active duty, had to fight to stay on active duty because that's not allowed. Struggled every day to be seen as an equal. Went through a kidnapping and rape, and then had to go back to work and face those people who thought I was a strong person and now look at me as a victim. Had to deal with, after I deployed and came home, friends that knew that I was kidnapped and raped are now friends with the guy who did it. And then those same friends who found out I had cancer for me and are running around telling people that I really didn't have cancer. And then someone who knows it is very close to me still to this day, because whatever their reasons are, they decided they're going to tell me that they can't trust me because they don't believe that I'm actually going through treatment. That's the kind of stuff that's my life. That's reality. And I learn something new every day from that sort of stuff. And if sharing that helps other people, then damn it, I'm going to keep doing it.
And this turns into the first 4-hour episode of the Empowered. that I mean, you have such an incredible story, and that some of that, or actually about half of that, wasn't in the bio that I had prepared for you, that I found for you. And that just incredible stories. That's one of the reasons why this whole medium of podcasting, and I know you've been on a handful or maybe even more than that. It's just it's insane, the level of not just like a connection, but storytelling that can come out of a conversation between two people 2,000 miles away. So
I love it. I think
it's pretty awesome.
It is. And I mean, yeah, I've been on a few podcasts but it's a different group of people. If I do public speaking, I cater my speech to the crowd that's listening. If I'm at a church talking to people, which I haven't done yet, but if I end up ever going to a church talking to people, I'm going to focus on the things that people in that group of people think about, getting up every day, even though the world is stacked against you, and finding one thing out of a horrible day to be positive about. So every podcast I do, every talk that I do, it's focused towards that talk. Your podcast is focused toward empowerment. And for me, yes, there's so many different aspects of my story. But if I were to sum it all up, empowerment, if I were to tell you where I draw my strength from, is from knowing that I'm learning lessons every day, and learning that no matter how strong you think you are, you can always be stronger. No matter how great you think you are, you can always be greater. And nothing in life is going to be easy. It's not. And those people who have it easy, they don't know, they don't enjoy the rewards as much. Every day that I wake up, when I did that competition on stage on Saturday, I did it for 2 reasons. One, because one of my Gold Star moms, her son was killed, and he's always wanted to do a competition. He's very young when he was killed. I told her that she wanted to do it, but she wanted to do one, and she just had surgery, so it's not an option for her anytime soon. So I told her I would do it in his honor. The second reason is because every year since I was diagnosed, for the past 3 years, I have done something. It started out as I'm going to do something I hate. So I ran a marathon the first year. I was actively going through chemo, and I ran a marathon. Didn't train for it the way I should have. It was a bad idea, but I did it. After I was done, I felt great. It was sore, but I felt great that I finished it. I finished something that I never wanted to do. Second year, I did the Xterra Trail Run in Hawaii. It's 13.1 miles. I did it with a team. I did it with this amazing young man, Alan Honeycutt. Kid broke his completely, was in a car accident, couldn't walk, couldn't do anything, and he fought his way to get back on his feet, and he started running for his friend Stephanie, who was killed in the car accident. He ran with us. That was the longest he had ever run since his accident, and he ran it with us. So I ran with him, well, behind him. But as it got harder, I wanted to quit. And the reason I do these things, when you want to quit, that's when the challenge starts. And I couldn't run as fast toward the, like at the 10-mile mark, or not the 8-mile mark. It just started going uphill. So I decided that I was going to stop trying to be so competitive and take it for what it was. I was climbing to the top of mountains. And as I got to the top, I would think about one thing that I had been through and that I had overcome. and actually give myself a pat on the back for beating it. The end of that run, I was crying and it was a mess, but I was happy. And I literally told my ex, because he asked me if I was okay. And I said, yeah, but I feel better because I left my cancer.
Wow.
Oh, he got me crying again. But this year I did the bodybuilding competition because it's challenging. It's a different world. And I have an opinion on that world. And it's not that it's not a positive opinion, because I respect all athletes, but I needed to learn more about it. I was so dismissive to training people for it because of the things you have to do. And I was like, you know what? It's not my job to decide someone's goals for them. It's my job to help them reach those goals. So I'm going to learn about this. And so I did it. And standing on that stage, it was, I kid you not, you could ask, the friends that were supposed to come didn't bother to tell me why they weren't coming. My daughter was doing a school thing, so she couldn't be there. And everything that could happen did happen. I didn't have access to my coach. I didn't know anything about posing. I didn't have a suit, shoes, had no clue where to go. Driving there, I was devastated. I cried in the car just because I was so emotional and hungry. I missed my turn. I cried. I got there. I was angry. But when I finished it, the first round, all I could think about was, oh my God, I did something that I never imagined I would ever do. I reached a goal that I never imagined I would ever get to. That's what it's about for me. It's about those small victories, because for me, the giant victory is being alive, being able to see my daughter grow up, get married, have kids. The small victories are the daily things. The fact that I can go to sleep at night doing my best to not focus on things that I can't control. And so that's what empowerment is to me. Empowerment to me is watching someone who, after I did a spreecast talking about my rape and about me dealing with depression and PTSD, very vulnerable. I cried like a baby on it, but I exposed myself in a way I've never done before. 12 years in the military, and I never told anybody half the stuff I've been through because I didn't want them to see me as weak. And I allowed strangers to see me, not only hear me, but see me be completely vulnerable and weak. But the victory was when I got 15 messages on Facebook afterwards of people sending me long messages, sending me stories about how these horrific things that happened to them and how hearing my story helped them realize that it doesn't matter if you say you're over it, if you can't be honest with yourself and the rest of the world and say exactly what happened to you, you're not over it. You have to be able to identify with what happened to you and not blame yourself, and not, because I blame myself for a lot of things. That's where my victories come, and that's what empowers me to keep doing it. It's not photo shoot, it's not interviews, it's not anything. It's when people message me and say, I want you to know that hearing your story has helped me do X, Y, and Z. Because my response to them is, I want you to know that you liking a photo or messaging me or telling me that I inspired you is what motivates me, because you're hearing my story and you're taking what I'm saying and you're giving it back to me, and I'm learning from you. That's what empowerment is all about to me.
Wow. I think this episode, Mylee, is going to blow people's minds. I think it's going to be, it's already been incredible for me. So again, thank you for sharing that. Before my final question, I can skip other questions, but I always try to throw this one in there. What was the last movie you saw?
Oh, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
How was it?
It was okay. I mean, I was a huge turtle fan as a kid, so I felt like their faces were weird, and I felt like it kind of went away from the story of the turtles. But I get that we're in a different day and age. But I would have loved to have seen either them continue on from the last movies that were made, or I don't know. There was no Casey in there. Casey was not in there. It was very modern and stuff, but they looked weird. They creeped me out just a bit.
Yeah. I have not seen it yet, but I'll probably wait till it's out on Redbox to check that one out.
Yeah.
Mylee, what is one tip or piece of advice that you can give someone who is going through something similar to what we've talked about today, what's one tip or piece of advice that you might give that person?
I say know that it gets better, and know that you can't expect anyone to be there for you if you don't talk about it. You can't expect people to help you or know what you're going through if you don't trust someone enough to tell them. And it's hit or miss. Sometimes you tell someone and they have no idea what to say because they've never been through it before. And then you just tell them, I thank you for listening. If you can find someone that will listen to you, it's huge. And the only other tip I have is try not to focus on so much on what you don't have or how bad things are or the negatives. Make it a habit to find one positive thing during the day. At the end of the day, what is one out of a horrible day? What is one positive thing? And if the only positive thing is I'm alive, hold on to that. And then start thinking about reasons you're thankful to be alive. And I promise you, as it goes on, as you get used to doing it, you'll start finding more things to be positive about in the worst situations ever. Because if we spend our whole life focusing on the negative, we stop moving forward. We start sidestepping, we start backstepping. The whole goal is to keep moving forward, even if we have no idea where the hell we're going. Just keep moving forward. I always tell people, just keep it moving. That was my favorite line. That was favorite line to my soldiers when they were in the hallway. Keep it moving. Get out of my hallway. Keep it moving. So I always hashtag that now. Just keep it moving. No matter what, just don't become stagnant in your own misery.
Wow, I love that. Thank you for letting me and the listener take an extra, 20 minutes or so of your time that was unplanned. Thank you for being generous with that. If someone wanted to connect with you, Mylee, say thank you for being on the show. Thank you for just sharing your story, or that they've been inspired by you. Where can I send them?
So I'm still building my website, which would be MyleeYC.com. But they can go to my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Mylee YC. It's not spelled like Miley Cyrus, though. Not at all. And then I'm on Instagram. I put a lot of my training videos and stuff like that on Instagram and Twitter, which is the same. It's @ Mylee YC. And I'm pretty good I love interacting with people. I love hearing stories. So send me your stories. If you have other questions, I'd love to answer them. So I'm pretty good about getting back to people about it. But I love the interactions. Perfect. And I remember on your Facebook page, my phone auto-corrected Mylee to Miles. So if you see that, I couldn't go back and edit it. So I apologize for that. No worries. Well, thank you, Mylee, for hanging out with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor to be asked. I'm super excited. I don't know how anybody could follow that, so I won't add anything here. Just wanted to point out I think my favorite quote of the story, and of Mylee's story, and it means a lot to me when she said, "The more I told my story, the stronger I got, and every time I tell my story, I learn something new about myself." And you've probably heard me say several times through the podcast or blog just how big of a tragedy it is that we go through life thinking that we're alone in our struggles, and we don't share our story. We completely undervalue the life lessons that we have learned along the way. I just want to encourage you to share your story with somebody today. Just connect with somebody. If you are in the Round Rock, Austin, South Central Texas area, come and connect with other online entrepreneurs. November 1st, 2014 at 7 p.m. at the La Madeleine. We're having an event. I'm hosting it. Some great speakers are lined up, and I can't wait to see you there. I'll put the link in the show notes. Head over to empoweredpodcast.com/57/57. We're already 57 episodes into this thing, and I couldn't be happier. Thanks for tuning in to the Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Ellery Wells. We'll see you next week.